Macramella, maybe he can explain to us how bankruptcy actually works.
Yes.
With the Gary Busey
thing. It's a good start.
If you missed it, Gary Busey has claimed bankruptcy and listed his possessions as 300 VHS tapes, probably all Gary Busey movies, 5 pairs of old moccasins, a broken pellet gun, rollerblades, 2 old surfboards, a Nikon film camera, an old large tape recorder, a bull's head, and a fabric strap with an attached eagle talon.
What I loved is we asked people on Twitter to give us their suggestions.
Some of them were dead on.
And some of them were dead on, but none of them were nearly as that strange of an entire list.
Yeah, a lot of people said signed mugshot of himself. Eric, you must have one of those, don't you?
I have my own mugshot. But, in that list was not the paint he stole from Meatloaf on Celebrity Apprentice. Remember, he went ballistic. I love, where are my paints? Meatloaf, are these your paints? Yes. You pushed me too far.
Yeah. That was, you know what? Because of those two guys, I watched every episode of Celebrity Apprentice that year.
I did. Surprise too, but I was addicted.
Yeah, I know. That was Gary Busey adds to things. He's such a train wreck that you want to watch him. That's the truth.
It's a surreal life meets Donald Trump, and I think in the new season, I'm thinking we have Clay Aiken, maybe.
Yeah, and I heard he's just a jerk.
Really?
Yeah, I saw a story about that today. Somebody said Clay Aiken is just a vicious beast on Celebrity Apprentice.
My opinion of him has changed. Oh, wait a minute. I have no opinion of him.
All right. One thing, I just want to go back, legal issue from the show yesterday. A man in the States got sentenced to 6 months behind bars for shooting his own TV. Apparently, you were his defense lawyer. I'm assuming.
If I was a defense lawyer, he'd be on death row.
But so for real, somebody can get 6 months behind bars for shooting their own TV?
Well, I mean, I guess, there's reckless endangerment, and,
right.
There are state laws that deal with that. For me, the issue was what was the show he was shooting at? Because, if it's a Kardashian-based show, then I think maybe he gets a promotion at work.
That's a good point. It's a very valid point.
Eric, we're quickly approaching yet another trade deadline. New CBA, though, may be changing that for us. Good or bad?
Yeah, I think this has to be part of this discussion, and I haven't been hearing enough of it or really any of it. But a new CBA is going to have a whole new framework in place when it comes to how you pay players. Right now, players get 57% of hockey-related revenue. And look at the other 3 sports, the NFL, baseball, and basketball. You're at about 47 to 50 or 51%. The NBA is about 50.5, give or take one, depending on the gains that the league enjoys. Baseball is at about 47, and the NFL is at about 47.5 or 48. So it's likely that will come down to, I think, around 52%, and that means there'll be less money to pay players. The cap will come down. In addition to that, the salary floor is a problem for a number of teams that simply do not generate enough revenue to cover their costs. Florida Panthers, that's a good example. So you might see the floor drop as well. And then there's the other issue, guys, of a potential amnesty clause like we've seen in the NBA, which will give teams, I call it the Scott Gomez clause, give teams the opportunity to buy out one player. Look, we have managed this contract poorly. It was a bad idea to acquire this player or sign him to this deal. We wanted the opportunity to cut him. Now, is that going to happen or not? I don't know, but there is enough uncertainty here that if I'm a general manager, depending on what market I'm in, a potential new framework under the CBA could seriously affect whether I engage in a trade or not. If the floor is going to drop, I may be more likely to trade players if I'm the Islanders. If the top end of the cap is going to drop, then I may be less likely to want to acquire a player. If there's an amnesty clause, well, then maybe I'll acquire a player as a massive contract and then cut him come next season. So there are all these considerations.
Typically, how long does it take to collectively bargain a new deal like the NHL's setting out to do? What's the time frame?
It's difficult to say because these things are kind of a moving target, and it can be quick like it was in Major League Baseball where they have no cap and the business is doing very well, and they opened up negotiations early on in 2011, and they were done after the World Series. That's when they made their announcement. But if you're looking at a situation like the NHL, the NFL, or the NBA where revenue share is going to be a paramount issue, I suspect it's not going to get done quickly. However, I don't think there is going to be a lockout. Negotiations are filled with ebbs and flows. Now, the sides, I don't think, have started to negotiate in earnest. There have been some discussions. There have been some missives that have been, launched both ways. The first one was realignment with the NHLPA wanting to hang on to its leverage. That is one piece of its leverage for negotiations for the CBA. But once they start talking, I expect that hopefully we'd have a deal sometime in the late summer. The NHL, unlike 2004, 2005, simply cannot afford a lockout. In 2005, the business model was completely, utterly broken, more so than the NBA in 2011. The NHL, people forget, we lost an entire season, we being the NHL. No other North American league has ever lost an entire season to a labor disruption. So that was such an exception to the rule, and it is frankly embarrassing. And I can't see it happening again, given the NHL's new TV contract with Comcast, given their momentum and record revenues and record attendance.
We keep hearing that Donald Fehr has not been on the job long enough, and that's why they have yet to hit the negotiating table. If you're a player, do you accept that? He's been on the job for over a year. How much longer does he need?
I've heard that too, and I don't buy it. When I hear that, I actually, if I'm a player and I understand what's being said, I'm actually happy. Donald Fehr has taken a completely different approach. He is the opposite of Ted Saskin. Look, the current CBA has a line in there that says the NHL can challenge any contract at any time after it's signed. That's why after Kovalchuk was nailed, the NHL went after Luongo and Hossa and Savaro's contracts. That is an asinine line to have in a CBA. If I sign a contract, I can have it challenged 2 years later. So that was a Saskin term. Fehr is like, look, I want the complete support of the players, and I published a memo that I got my hands on in September of 2010 saying that that's what he wanted. He is taking his time here. He is being very careful. He's making sure he's completely and fully educated. Donald Fehr's pedigree when it comes to labor law is outstanding. He comes from the Marvin Miller School of Labor. The baseball union, and that's baseball, the baseball union is the strongest union in sports and one of the strongest unions in sports. It is the only sport that has no cap at all. So Donald Fehr knows precisely what he's doing. He wants to make sure that he knows what the plan of attack is, but he also wants to make sure that he does the bidding of the players. He's not going to go out on his own on an island. He represents the players, and he understands that. But one thing is clear, and he has said this, we gave up too much last time, and that is absolutely true. From the player standpoint, you agreed to a hard cap and some crazy CBA conditions. That is not going to happen again.
Eric, great stuff, man. You have a good weekend, and we'll check up with you next week.
Okay, guys, take care.
That's Eric Macramella, Team 1260 Sports legal analyst.
He's pumped.
A handy guy to have on board as we work our way through the summer, mostly because of the Olympics.
Oh,
I think.
I was just thinking that I usually drink more in the evenings in the summer.